3:30 we'll go ahead and get started, and others will join, and hopefully they'll join in here pretty soon. But I want to say welcome to our next edition of the LTC webinar series. My name is Brian Bates, and I'm joined by co-host Matt Jacobson today. And we're joined also by Dr. Kristen Mattson. We're excited to have her back. She's a friend of the webinar, or I think it's supposed to be friend of the podcast, what you're supposed to say, but we don't have that. So friend of the webinar series. She's been with us before, and we're really excited to have her back again today. We are entering October. We have entered October, and coming up the week of October 18th through the 22nd is Digital Citizenship Education Week. And so kind of to celebrate digital citizenship, we've taken the entire month of October and we're focusing all of our webinars on digital citizenship. And so Dr. Mattson is going to kick us off today. But before we get started with today's session, just a couple quick reminders for you. We are recording the webinar. It'll be available via our YouTube channel in a couple days. It usually takes us a little bit of time to download, edit, and put those up there for you. So that'll be available on our YouTube channel, so check that out for the recording. Also, if you want to interact, ask questions, and I highly encourage you to interact and ask questions today, please use the chat feature and make sure that you select to everyone or to panelists and attendees, making sure that everybody gets to see your awesome responses or everybody gets to see your awesome questions. Makes it a lot easier for us to see all that stuff and keep it all straight. And lastly, if you are attending this live, you are eligible to receive professional development credit for attending. That email will be sent to you later on tomorrow afternoon. So without further ado, and don't want to spend a bunch more time for me talking, Kristen, welcome back, and I appreciate it. And feel free to take over the screen when you're ready.
Cool, thank you so much. And I'm really excited that you encourage people to share in the chat, because I'm going to actually make people share in the chat. So hopefully everybody that's in the room is ready to participate, because there's nothing worse than talking into the void. My name is Dr. Kristen Mattson. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we have my slides. I'm working off of 2 screens, people, so I am going to do my best to make sure that I see what's happening in the chat, and also make sure that I keep the content going for you. Today's presentation is a really fun one. It's super practically applicable for classrooms of all different levels and all different content areas. It's a presentation that I've done many times in many different places. And what I love about giving this presentation is that I typically hear from educators after the fact who tell me, hey, I really loved this idea that I saw. I remixed it and I used it in this way, and it went over very well with my students. And so the presentation just kind of continues to grow, because great educators like you continue to add your ideas to it. So just to give you a little bit of background about me, I am an educator. I guess is the best way I can describe myself. I'm a former English teacher. I spent 7 years as a high school librarian. I now work as an adjunct professor at the University of Illinois. I'm supporting pre-service school librarians and public youth librarians, but I'm also just kind of a consultant, I suppose. I love to take on different projects in all different realms of education and help out kind of where I can. If you are on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you can just look me up pretty much everywhere at Dr. K. Mattson. And then I'd also encourage you to connect with my colleague, Dr. Leanne Lindsay. Together, we have formed a partnership called the DigCit Doctors, because we are both doctors of education and we both love digital citizenship. And we have an account on Twitter as well. So a little bit about me. I'd love to continue to connect with you after this session is over. Now, again, I've done this session enough times to have started to collect some frequently asked questions. So let me talk to you just about a few key points before we really get into the content. The first point that I want to give to you is to try to take off your teacher hat and really just enjoy this experience as a learner. It never fails when I have people in a room, they're trying so hard to do the activities and also capture the activities so that they can take them back to their classrooms later. I promise I've done all the capturing for you. So you can just enjoy being a learner, and I am going to share all of these images with you at the end. I'm going to share all of these prompts with you at the end. You don't have to be a mad note taker. You'll get everything, I promise. These images are not images that I own copyright to. I have sources for all of the images that I will also share with you at the end. And this presentation, I really like to give as a fair use, remix, share alike presentation. So take anything you see here and use it back in your schools with parents, with students, with colleagues. If you want to shout out my name, that's awesome. If not, just keep on sharing the love. All right, so before we get into using images for digital citizenship, I think we need to have a nice foundation of what digital citizenship really is. A lot of people equate digital citizenship with internet safety, and it's no surprise that that's the case. A lot of the history of digital citizenship really had us thinking in that way, that it was all about the rules and the regulations and the policies that would keep students safe online. But the new digital citizenship is really moving beyond this mindset of internet safety to a space of learner empowerment. And we've seen changes reflected in the ISTE standards. We've seen changes reflected in law and in legislation and in curriculum. And really, digital citizenship now is so much more than just being safe online. I love to talk about digital citizens as students who can really wrestle with the important ethical questions at the intersection of technology and humanity. As we become a more increasingly technological society, we have a lot of critical thinking that we need to do at that intersection. And I don't want our students to just be blind followers of rules. I want our students to be those critical thinkers. So with that in mind, my colleague, Dr. Leanne Lindsay, and I have really tried to help people see like the depth of digital citizenship and all of the different areas that it can cover. I'm going to put a link in the chat for you real quick. It's teachdigcit.com. Just last week, she and I released this free digital citizenship curricular framework for pre-K through 12th grade. So this is just kind of bonus content for you that I wanted to throw in. Many times when we talk to educators and school districts, we hear that digital citizenship happens during Digital Citizenship Week, or it's an assembly at the start of the year. Thank you for that clickable link. Or it's an assembly that happens at the start of the year, or it's something that the librarian handles or the technology teacher handles, or it's a set of canned lessons that everybody does in a study hall. And what my colleague Leanne and I really think is that it needs to be more comprehensive than just safety, than just cyberbullying. So she and I have put together this framework to really show the depth of the topic. And yes, digital safety is important, but we also know that students need media and information literacy to be able to be citizens of digital spaces. We know that their social and emotional well-being and their physical health can all be impacted by screens, and we need to address that within our curriculum. And then we also know that technology is a window into global collaboration, and it's an opportunity to be part of a global set of citizens, and we have some responsibility that goes along with that. So this framework, again, just can help you kind of think about the depth of digital citizenship and really look at ways that you can support it at the specific grade levels that you teach. Now, one way to start getting into this depth and exploring some of these nuances of digital citizenship is through images, which is why you came here today. So let's get down to the fun activities. You might be asking yourself, why images? Why is that a great way to start talking about digital citizenship? Well, first, I find that many teachers shy away from digital citizenship topics because they don't feel like they are experts. People can go to school for, teaching math, teaching, being a reading specialist, but nobody really goes to college and is like, I'm going to become a digital citizenship expert. And so sometimes teachers will shy away from these topics if they don't feel like they have the right answers. to give to students. The second reason that images work really well in the classroom is that they really promote and facilitate student voice. Our students are already digital citizens, and so we need to value the expertise that they have as citizens of digital spaces and give them opportunities to share their experiences, to ask questions, and to offer up their opinions. I like images because they're open-ended, and I'm a humanities person, right? English teacher, school librarian. I don't really like talking about things that only have one right answer or one wrong answer. I love exploring those gray areas with young people, and images allow us to have those open-ended conversations. Now, the properly chosen image can be cross-curricular. So I'm going to show you some examples in a bit, but if I have a really great image that toys around with technology in history, it can be an easy way for me to bring digital citizenship into a social studies classroom. Same goes for science, math, ELA. Images are also really naturally differentiating. I can show a picture to a group of adults, and based on your life experiences, your background knowledge, your content knowledge, you're going to interpret that image differently from the person sitting next to you. And the same thing goes for our students. Many of our students might grab a surface level meaning from an image, while others are able to really dig into some of the symbolism and the nuance that hides within a picture. So let's get started with a little warm-up activity that you can replicate again with students, colleagues, parents. And I would love for everyone to participate in this activity in the chat. So before I give the instructions, find your chat window. You should be able to click on the chat button at the bottom of the Zoom and make sure you flip over who can see your messages from panelists to everyone, because I want to make sure everybody can see everything that is typed here. And here are the instructions for the activity. You are looking at 3 images on your screen, A on the left, B in the center, C on the right. These all happen to be done by the same artist. And I think that each one of these images is really showing kind of society's relationship with technology. My question for you is, which one of these images do you think best represents society's relationship with technology? So you're going to type in the chat either A, B, or C. And then I would love for you to give us just a few words about why you chose that image. So in the chat, which image best represents humanity's relationship with technology, A, B, or C, plus a few words about, why you chose that particular picture. Brian, feel free to participate if you're, wanting to jump in.
Oh, I am.
Oh, good. Nicole's here. Nice to see you, Nicole. As you're thinking about this and kind of what picture you would choose, let me tell you how I like to use this activity, not in a virtual presentation like this one, but in an actual physical classroom space. I will typically ask students or parents to choose a place in the room that matches the picture that they are choosing. So people who like picture A go stand in one corner, B in another corner, C up at the front of the room. And what happens inevitably every time is that we have people almost equally split into the different sections of the room. So it turns out you both picked C, a lot of people seeing the world through the social media lens, people using social media to view the world around them. How about it, Toby? Twitter was blowing up though, because it was the only place we could talk to each other. Instead of experiencing society, we use social media to get out of our perceived experiences. So I would ask all of you folks that chose C to turn in the room and share and talk about what you were interpreting from that image. And I'd have the A's do the same and the B's do the same. And then I would challenge you to make eye contact with someone across the room who chose a different picture than you did, and go have a conversation with that person and hear their perspective. Now, this is a really great warm-up activity for using images in the classroom, because it reminds students or participants that there are no right or wrong answers when we're talking about interpreting art. There are no right or wrong answers when we're sharing our perceptions of technology use. Hi, Nicole. I've heard so many fascinating observations from these images that I didn't make on my own, but were brought to my attention by other people in the room. People talk about B as technology sort of being used as a ladder to be able to overcome obstacles or get outside of our own little communities. People talk about A in a similar way, where we have the opportunity to kind of explore things outside of our window, but it's limited. We're still tied to that physical space, which is the cord. It took me a really long time to realize that the Facebook logo is like a periscope, right? So even though we're viewing the world through social media, we're only viewing this tiny little square of the world, and the door is open, and yet the man is not choosing to step through the door. So giving people multiple images, asking them to make a decision and support that decision, and then talking about how there really are no right or wrong answers, just can help set that tone for continued use of image in the classroom. Now, the first time I used images with students was actually in a sophomore health class, where the students had a unit of study all about healthy relationships. It was a unit that had been done year after year. And because the curriculum was a bit outdated, there was no conversation about technology in a unit on healthy relationships for teenagers. And the teacher and I were like, we've got to do something, right? Our kids are living most of their relationships through technology. So we scoured the internet. We found some really great images that we asked students to explore in terms of how technology was impacting the relationships that they are in every single day. And we set this up like a gallery walk. So we printed large images and put them all around the classroom. And we asked students to visit each image with a notebook in hand. And for every image they visited, they were answering 3 questions in their notebook. First, what message is the artist trying to say here? Second, do I agree or disagree with this message? So first, let's analyze the picture. Second, let's decide where I stand. And then third, can I make any connections to this image? Is this something that I have experienced? Is this something that my friends deal with? What connections can I make? I also love this use of image because it takes some of the personal away for kids. When 15-year-olds are confronted with conversation about technology use and friendships and relationships, it can be really difficult for them to talk about their own experiences. Like these girls who are together but feeling a bit lonely. It's hard for a student to admit that they feel these things sometimes, but it's a lot easier for them to have a conversation about what they're seeing in the picture. So there's some safety there as well. All right, and so then students, kind of maneuver around the room. I have these pictures that I love to use with adults, especially parent groups that I meet with, because it challenges them to think about technology too. So let's get some ideas here. What's the message? Do you agree or disagree? Can you make any connections? I'm going to have each image up for like 15, 20 seconds, and I would love in the chat for you to just kind of throw your thoughts out there about the particular picture. Oh, and Nicole, I realized you're just typing to hosts and panelists only, so you might want to switch over to everyone. Here's another. Do we have any thoughts about this image? What does it mean? No biggie. What does it mean? Do I agree or disagree? Can I relate? Unfortunately, I can relate to this one. I've gotten to the point now where I'm not allowed to keep my cell phone on my desk. I actually keep it way far away on the other side of the room. This one always gets adults talking. What's the artist trying to say? What do you think about it? Can you make any connections? Librarians love this picture the most. Ah, I like that. Do as we say, not as we do. Good. I like that, Nicole. Sometimes when I think about this one, I think about how quick we are to make judgments on young people's digital habits. Like, oh, those young people, they're so obsessed with all the latest and greatest. And for them, technology, it's like air. It's just all around them. And we're kind of the ones that are obsessed with the latest and greatest. This one's fun to give to elementary school kids, by the way. My daughter is 11, but I think we first looked at this one when she was like maybe 8 or 9. And adults always say, oh yeah, everybody's so nosy on Facebook. But my 8-year-old was like, maybe Facebook is a great way to make a new friend. Very cute, different interpretations, right? Depending on the age of who's using or who's looking at the image and sort of their experiences or lack of experiences with technology and social media. Okay, just a few more. And again, you're seeing that so many of these pictures are on different themes, everything from relationships to digital habits, social media use, privacy and security. We can sort of curate and choose images on a theme like I did for the high school students to really get people thinking about one topic in lots and lots of different ways. So after students go through and look at pictures sort of on their own, gather their own thoughts, jot some things in a notebook, I then ask them to just pick one image that's hanging on the wall that really spoke to them the most. And I ask them to go and stand at that image. And so you start to see groups of people sort of congregate around the room, around images that kind of spoke to them. And then I asked them to find, a partner or a group of 3 to have a conversation with about that particular image. And when I talk to teachers and adults, I ask different questions than when I talk to kids. For teachers, I would ask you questions like, why might the theme of this image be an important one to your digital citizenship lessons? So for example, do your digital citizenship lessons, include some of the social and emotional aspects, like this little boy, throwing a fit down in the bottom right corner because he doesn't have any likes or friends? Does it address some of the technology addiction that we see in the 7 habits of serious procrastinators? Are we talking about the internet safety pieces of privacy and security? Are we talking about the relational components? So even if you're leading a professional development and you're exposing other teachers and you're building the lots of different images, it can start a great conversation about what is and is not included in your current digital citizenship curriculum. I also like to get adults, whether it's parents or teachers, kind of thinking about how young people might react to an image differently or similarly to the adults in the room. It's always helpful, I think, for people to try to take those other perspectives. All right, let's take a look at a few more ways that we can use images in the classroom. This doesn't have to be a big activity like the gallery walk, which took a full period of a high school health classroom. This can be a really short sort of bell ringer activity that gets kids' brains warmed up. And I teased at you a bit earlier that we could bring images into content area classrooms to bring digital citizenship into different areas of the school. So imagine you're a 6th grader, you walk into social studies class, And this picture is just sort of displayed at the front of the room. You get out your notebook, your Chromebook, whatever, and you are asked some questions to reflect on while the teacher takes attendance and collects homework and whatnot. In a social studies classroom, historical thinking is very important. So how might we bring historical thinking and digital citizenship together? Through a cool image like this one. If you're struggling with interpretation, I realize this one's a little blurry. Thinking of the Titanic, everybody in the water is looking at the Titanic and holding up their cell phone to film the sinking. So the question again, what's this artist saying, and do we agree or disagree with it? Some of our students may disagree. But then we can add a question that really brings in that content area perspective. I love, as a librarian, getting kids to think about primary and secondary and tertiary sources. And I think too often in history classes, we equate primary sources with like old yellow documents and books that are falling apart and black and white photographs. But our students are actually capturing primary sources every single day. And so how might our understanding of history be different if we always had cell phones? Whose stories might be told? What perspectives might we hear? What about the primary sources that you're capturing every day, young people? How might these primary sources be used, as a way to teach future generations about our current society? TikTok challenges, anyone? Here's another example of how we can bring technology into a content area. High school students are reading complex literature on a regular basis. They are being asked to examine allusion, which is a reference to another piece of text or a piece of art. And allusion can be really difficult to read and understand in a dense text like a Shakespeare or something to that effect. So we can practice the skill of allusion with something simpler like an image. And a lot of allusion in classic literature is biblical allusion. Students, I'm even thinking of like the cover of the book Twilight. I'm dating myself here. Twilight was popular like 20 years ago. But the cover of Twilight is like these hands holding out an apple. And if you have biblical knowledge, you know that that is representative of temptation in the Garden of Eden. Now, if you don't have that background knowledge, you might just be like, an apple on Twilight. That's weird choice for cover art. But we can help students practice some of this allusion. So on this screen, I have two Bible passages and an image together. And again, a Common Core standard of state a claim and then support your claim. We can do that here. Which Bible verse would be a better caption for this image and why? State a claim, pick a verse, support it with your reasoning. We can practice allusion with our younger students as well. What do we know about the stories of Snow White and Pinocchio and Rapunzel that help us interpret this art? And what are the different messages what different messages are these artists trying to portray about who we are as a society? What do you think? Do you agree? Disagree? Have other thoughts? All really open-ended, easy discussions to have with students. All right, let's talk about a few other ways that we can use pictures in short snippets. Again, whether it's a bell ringer, a closer, a warm-up, just something that you pull out for fun during Digital Citizenship Week. I love taking pictures and remixing them with opportunities for kids to write. A lot of the examples that I've given you so far have been, discussions, let's talk about these things, but we can also have students, write their ideas. So asking them to do a caption for an image, very short, succinct, helps practice those summarizing skills. basically just practicing that visual interpretation, that visual literacy. And it's a quick way for me to kind of see, one, how their visual literacy interpretation is, but two, what their thoughts are about society and technology. Let's pause for a moment and see if we can get any witty captions out of this one. It's kind of my favorite one to challenge people with. If you had to write a caption for this image, what might you write? You can add your idea in the chat. That's pretty good, Toby. This person's like in a jam now. Got their screen all dirty. Haha. I need to start writing some of these down because some of you are very clever. We can add thought bubbles, caption boxes to a slide deck like this one, and then turn the slide deck over to students so that instead of writing a caption, I'm simply filling in the thought bubble. For this image, I can add multiple thought and dialogue bubbles. Again, I'm going back to my English teacher librarian days, where I might be teaching students like how to read panels on a graphic novel, how to write interesting dialogue. I can merge all of those skills in with these digital citizenship topics. Again, librarian here. I also love the idea of having longer opportunities for writing. And so presenting a picture like this and asking students to spend a few minutes to write a back of the book summary for the newest book we just got in our classroom, the newest book we just got in our library. What would the summary of this story be on the back that would really, really make a reader want to check it out? Alternatively, I used to have my students fill out plot diagrams all the time for short stories that we would read in class. I love the idea of flipping it on its head and saying, no, create a plot diagram that would match this story. And if your kids aren't into book summaries, have this be the poster of the latest movie that's coming to the movie theater, and ask them to do a plot diagram for that movie poster. Lots of ways that we can get them thinking and engaging in digital citizenship topics where they are kind of in the driver's seat. Another fun one maybe for middle or high school students in a social studies classroom. I feel like the best interpretation I got of this one was a guy just getting off of work as like a character in Hamilton. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it, right? Sure, makes sense to me. All right, let's see if we can get another activity going. It's a little quiet in the chat, so I'm kind of just summarizing these for all of you. But if you want to jump in, I'd love for you to jump in. I like the idea of students being able to hear each other's interpretations, but I know that throwing students in a group and being like, hey, talk about this, doesn't always facilitate every voice being heard. And so one bell ringer activity that I like to do is have every student take out a half sheet of paper and number that half sheet of paper from 1 to 5. And everyone in the class is looking at the same exact image. And I ask students on line number 1 to complete the sentence, I noticed. And they have to just let me know something that they've noticed in this picture. So if you notice something, feel free to throw it in the chat. I noticed something new, like every time I look at this, like there's 3 guys walking back there in matching hoodies. I don't know what that's all about. So something you notice, they write it down, and then they pass their paper to the person sitting next to them. So now I'm holding Toby's paper, and I just noticed, you know, these 3 guys in the matching green hoodies. And then I read Toby's paper, and I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even, you know, see that they're probably in like a train station. And so now I've got an additional piece of information because I have Toby's paper. So now I'm going to keep Toby's paper, and on number 2, I am going to answer this question, I wonder. And I'm not wondering about Toby's number 1, I'm wondering about the picture. So I wonder why the girl in the center looks like a Renaissance painting. And then I'm going to pass my paper. And when I get a new paper now, I see another person's noticing and I see another person's wonderment. And we continue to fill out lines and pass these papers and have sort of this silent group discussion about the picture that we see in the classroom. Anytime I do an activity like this one, I always leave a space for a final thought, because inevitably some genius student will see or think about something in this picture that my prompts didn't even tease out of them. I have used this image in some other ways as well. I like using it for perspective writing, and that can be lengthy perspective writing or very short snippets. When I taught 8th grade, we did a lot of punctuating dialogue. That was the grammar thing that we were working on. And so I would love to have students say, pick 2 people in the picture, like I'm going to pick 150 guy and 320 guy. And I want you to write an exchange of dialogue that happens when the 2 of them, like bump into each other. I can practice that dialogue. I also can have sort of these conversations about digital citizenship, digital life. Write me a first-person perspective of what's going on in this lady's head that's holding the 0 balloon. Write me a third-person perspective about the events leading up to man 37 getting to the train that day. Lots of different ways to use the exact same picture. Right, another fun activity to do with images actually pairs pictures with some words. My own 3 kids love to play Would You Rather at the dinner table, and they always pick the most inappropriate things to ask at dinner. It's like, would you rather eat a booger or step in dog poop? And you're like, I wouldn't rather do either of those. And thanks for talking about it at the dinner table. But one night while they were playing, I kind of got this idea of a digital citizenship would you rather. And when I look at pictures, I kind of get inspired to come up with different scenarios for would you rather. And I have some to share with all of you. Remind me to give you that link. So here's a would you rather question. Would you rather have one friend that you spend time with every single day, or would you rather have millions of online followers that you never see in person? I could see this being a 2-minute turn and talk. I could see this being a 2-minute silent journaling as a bell ringer. I could see this as a go home and have this conversation with a parent and report back tomorrow. Lots of different ways to use these would you rather prompts. I wrote this one before COVID, guys, and I thought I knew what I would say. And now I have a different answer. Would you rather lose permanent access to the internet or permanent permission to leave your house? I was like, the internet can do everything. Why would I have to ever leave my house? I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to leave my house. I think I could do without the internet. Little one for kiddos. Would you rather own a robot dog or a real dog? Kind of a fun conversation to have with littles. And I actually have, I'll find the link in a minute. I have 50 would you rather prompts available on my website as a free download. I will put the link in the chat. You simply throw your email into a box and it emails you the 50 would you rather prompts. Oh, thank you. That's the main site. I'll see if I can find like the actual URL that'll take you right to that download. All right, we have a really small group, so I don't think that we will actually do this activity. Instead, I want to talk you through it. It is a tabletop activity that when we were mostly in person, I loved to do with people because they would get in a group around a table and they'd have these manipulatives and they'd have these really, really great conversations. And when we went mostly virtual, I was like, no, I love this activity. How can I do this virtually? So I figured it out because that's what teachers do. But the premise is that people get either an envelope full of picture cards, or you'll see in a moment the virtual version. And as a team of maybe 3 or 4, their job is to take all of the cards in the envelope, all of the pictures in the envelope, and start to sort them into groupings of their own choosing. So as a team of 4 or 5, you're having that conversation. Should this picture go with this group? Should this picture go with that group? And every pile of pictures that you make has to have a category name to it. So I could divide the participants here in this Zoom as panelists versus attendees, or I could do people in their 40s, people in their 50s, people in their 30s. I can sort and group people however I want, same way I could sort and group cards however I want. And when we had to go virtual, I turned this activity into a Jamboard activity. So I'll share this in the link if you want to just take a look at it and play around with it. You're more than welcome. Because we're such a small group, I won't have us actually do the activity. But you can see I just take a Google document and I have a Jamboard link for every possible number of Zoom groups I could end up with, right? So if you're in Zoom group number 2, Zoom room number 2, here's your Jamboard. Every Jamboard's the same. My tip for you, make a master Jamboard and then make copies of that one. And inside of every Jamboard, you know, the teams can move the cards around. They can make them larger, smaller. They can add sticky notes to label the category name if they'd like. And I give them time to just talk through this in a Zoom breakout room, you know, with their Jamboard and their team. And just like that very first activity we did where there were 3 pictures and there were no right or wrong answers, there are no right or wrong answers to this activity either. It's not like, yay, you won the activity. And really the groups that people come up with aren't even all that important. It's more about that process and that conversation of, hey, let's take a look at this picture. What does this mean? What is going on with this guy? Have you ever seen anything like this before? Oh, that is a huge problem. I don't think that's a problem. The authentic conversation that happens about digital life through the activity that is most valuable. So again, pretty easy setup, and the pictures that you choose for the board, or if you want to print pictures and put them in a physical envelope, again, you choose them based on a theme, or you choose them based on the age of the children that you're working with. All right, I have also taken a lot of those cards. Let me give you this link too. And I've put them onto a PDF that you can grab as well. And I put a picture and then I write a couple of thought-provoking questions. And this was actually my physical sort prior to COVID, where I had to put it on Jamboard. I kind of just like cut these out and I folded them in half so that you had the picture on one side and the questions on the back. And I ran them through my laminator, and every group had an envelope with all of the pictures that they could sort out. And then on the back of each picture were some discussion questions. And so my kiddos that would sort super fast and be like, I'm done. Cool, pick your favorite picture, flip it over, and talk about the 3 questions on the back. You could also use the questions as journal prompts or creative writing ideas or inquiry launches. I think like when I look at a picture like this one, I'm thinking a really cool inquiry launch would be, you know, is tech addiction a real thing? Are people actually addicted to technology? What a fun research project for like a sophomore health student. Trying to think about, okay, here a good inquiry launch. How could I better protect my privacy when I'm online? Students can chase that question kind of down a rabbit hole. All right, so the last thing that I wanted to share with you is the would you rather prompts, and I will definitely go and grab that link for you. But just to reiterate a couple of key ideas, digital citizenship, it's more than just internet safety, right? It's all the ways that technology impacts who we are as individual people, who we are as society. It's complex. And we need students who can reflect on their own relationship with technology and who can also reflect on technology's relationship with the world, because the technology is going to continue to change and evolve, and our young people are going to continue to change and evolve. And so the biggest favor that we can do for them is to help them be critical thinkers and questioners of their relationships with technology. I also want to reiterate that digital citizenship is messy and complex, right? We're all figuring out this digital life together, and there are very few, right answers. And so images can give students that space and the support to kind of swim around and explore these gray areas in a way that doesn't feel so much pressure to have that right answer. While I navigate for the Would You Rather download, I want to invite you to visit this tiny URL. It is a collection of nearly 800 images that I've curated from around the internet. Would you rather? Nearly 800 images that I've curated from around the internet over time. And I've done my best to kind of sort them into categories and groups around different digital citizenship topics. So you are welcome to explore those curated collections. And then if you would like to get a copy of the Would You Rather prompts, again, I have 50 of them. The last link that I just shared will take you to my website where you'll see like a little pop-up. You put your email in and it will automatically email you those 50 Would You Rather prompts. All right, I feel like I just talked a whole lot for a really long time. So I want to take a moment to thank the LTC for inviting me to help kick off Digital Citizenship Month. And I want to see if there are any questions that I can answer from the attendees before we say good afternoon to each other.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. While those of you who have any questions, if you want to go ahead and type them in the chat, I do want to say, again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are looking forward to really highlighting a lot of different things for Digital Citizenship Month, and especially the week of the 18th when we have Digital Citizenship Week. So we appreciate you being a part and coming back and joining us again. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat at this time. Also, we're kind of a small enough group that if you want to raise your hand and ask the question, I can give you the ability to unmute yourself if you'd like that as well. So,
how cool. I didn't know you had that option. I would have invited them to do the same. My contact information again one more time as well. Thank you, Nicole.
All right, well, as Dr. Mattson said, her contact information is there. Sometimes those questions pop up after you jump off, so feel free to reach out if you have any. Please join the LTC over the next couple Tuesdays for some more digital citizenship webinars. And don't forget, there's also a docket. Nicole, if you're still in here, do you want to throw out a link to the resource that the coaches created as well? So people can kind of check that out, the digital citizenship resources. Thank you, Matt, for reminding us that we have shifted up our webinar archive a little bit. It is hosted on our YouTube channel now. We do have the link there in the chat to go follow the channel. Give us about 24 hours or so to get the video downloaded, processed, and put up there, but it'll be available there soon. So again, Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to the attendees for joining us, and we will see you all again soon.
Have a great afternoon.